Hi, thank you for joining me for some Pilates today. As always, we're going to be working through the whole body, but today's emphasis is more on the legs. So we're just going to start standing, feet hip distance apart, and we'll do some floating arms to begin with, and we'll work with connecting our breath to the arms as a bit of a warm-up. So let's take an inhale into the ribs. And then as we exhale, let's float the arms all the way up overhead, feeling that navel draw towards the spine. Inhale, bringing the arms back down. Then exhale, navel to spine, close the ribs as the arms reach up overhead. Good. Inhale, coming down. And exhale, reaching the arms up. Continue with this breath pattern and moving the arms. I want you to really focus on your spine staying still as you reach the arms overhead. Your legs are active and you're pressing down through the feet. Good. So just waking up that core, feeling our abdominals draw in as we reach the arms overhead, helping to keep the spine still. The next time your arms are down by your side, we're going to move that into some heel lifts. So we're just going to lift the heels up and then back down again. Good, coming up and down, mobilizing through those ankles. If you want to start to add a knee bend when your heels land, then you can. So we're just going to be lifting those heels up. And then as the heels land, bending into the knees and slightly into the hips. So just finding your balance over the balls of the feet as you lift the heels. Good, and then we can combine our arm movement with our heel lifts. So as our heels come down and we bend the knees, we're going to reach the arms overhead. And then as the arms come down, we're going to lift the heels. Good, so arms come up overhead, we bend the knees. Then we inhale, reach the arms down, lift the heels. Exhale, bend the knees, arms up, heels down. Inhale, heels up, arms down. So it's a bit of coordination here. Exhale, reach the arms overhead, bend the knees, drop the heels. Inhale, heels come up, arms come down. Last one, exhale, sitting down, reaching up. And inhale, arms down, heels come up. Good. And then we're just going to stand back into our neutral position. So now we're going to come into some chalk circles. We'll start with the right leg forward. Bring the hands to the hips just to check that your pelvis is going to stay still as you move your leg and your hip here. So we're going to draw a big circle with that right leg around to the back and then bend the knee to bring the leg through in front. So we circle round and bring it through in front. If you want to float the leg up and do this without your right foot touching the ground, then you can. It's a little bit more balance, a little bit more hip mobility involved. And we'll just go one more in this direction. And once that leg is out in front of you, we're going to bend the knee to bring it back and then circle out and around in front. So bending the knee, coming back, circle out and around in front. Breathing in a way that you can feel supported through your spine and your hips. And you're not moving your pelvis too much here as the leg moves. Last one. And then swapping sides. So now that left leg comes forward in front. We take the circle out to the back and through in front. Good. Pointing the toes, getting that length through the leg. If you want to float the leg up to hover above the floor, then you can, just to work on some balance and hip mobility. Last one in this direction. Keep your spine nice and tall as you do this. And then reversing that circle, bending the knee, bringing the foot back, circling out and around and in front. So watching for any upper body movement as you circle that leg. We want to stay very still in the rib cage and spine, trying to isolate this hip movement from the rest of the body. Good, last one in this direction. And then bringing that foot back down. Okay, releasing the arms down by your side. Now we're going to come into our curtsy squats. So with your right leg, you're just going to take a big step behind and across and then bend into your left knee. Then we're going to come back up to the start position. Left leg comes back and across, bending into that right knee. and then coming back up to start position. So with your arms, you can bring them out in front just as a counterbalance. But I want you to really think about that stretch coming through the outer hip of the front leg and the depth of your knee through the back leg. So this is also a little bit of a mobility exercise for your toes of the back foot. So your toes are going to get a really good stretch as they squat back. But if the toes don't like to bend that much, you're fine to come onto the top of your foot and just squat down on the top of your foot as well. If you want to add on here, as you step back behind you, you're going to reach your arms up. Good. Inhale to stand tall. Exhale, arms up, squat down. Good. Staying upright in the body, getting all that nice mobility through knees, hips, and ankles. It's also a little bit of cardio, it seems. I'm getting out of breath trying to talk through it all and do it at the same time. Good, just a couple more each way. Keep shoulders relaxed. Keep your control in your center, not in your periphery or in your extremities of arms and legs and shoulders. Good, last one to each side. Okay, and then standing tall, shake those shoulders out. So now we're going to come down onto our back. In our relaxation position, so that's knees bent, feet flat on the floor, and arms down by our side, palms facing down. Just check in with your neutral spine here. So your feet shouldn't be so far away that your lower back lifts up and not so far in that your lower back drops down. So try to find a nice foot position that feels like your lower back can just be in a nice relaxed lengthened position, not too lifted, not too dropped. We're going to do some spine curls here. So let's take an inhale in neutral, and then we exhale, tuck the tailbone and start to wheel the spine up off the floor, one vertebrae at a time. Keeping that tailbone tucked at the top, we inhale, and then exhale, one vertebrae at a time. We lower the hips all the way back down, untucking the tailbone at the bottom to return to neutral on our inhale. Exhale, tuck the tailbone, wheeling the spine all the way up off the floor, keeping the rib cage heavy and down. Inhale at the top, and then exhale, coming all the way back down again. Good, just working through these spine curls, mobilizing through our lower back, also getting some work through the back of the thighs, maybe a little stretch through the front of the thighs. And as we exhale and wheel the spine up off the floor, we're focusing on pulling navel to spine to keep that space through the belly, that our pelvis can tilt properly, and we're not blocking that pelvic tilt with bracing in our belly. Good, let's go for one more. Just check in that your rib cage is still down, your shoulders, your collarbones are still spread wide. Good. Okay, when your pelvis hits the floor again, we're going to return to neutral, and we're going to stay in neutral spine now for our glute bridge. So we're just lifting those hips up and down, but we're not worrying about curling the spine off the floor or any pelvic tilts. We're just staying in neutral here, exhaling to come up, inhaling to coming down. Inhale to come down. So you can stay here, or you can add a march. So as you lift up, you're going to lift your right leg up and then coming back down, replacing that right foot, then lifting up, bringing up that left leg. Good. So we're doing essentially a single leg bridge each time we lift, trying to keep the pelvis nice and level. Very nice. Good. Now you're going to stay up in your hip bridge, replace whatever leg was up so that you're in hip bridge with both feet down, and we're going to stay up and do our marching. So we're now very aware of the pelvis staying straight, the transfer of weight between feet, exhaling to bring the knee in, inhaling to lower the foot and change the weight to the other foot. So we find movement in the hip on the exhale, and we find stability and control on the inhale as we transfer that weight. Good, just a couple more each side. You can go as slow or as fast as you like here. Keep that work in the back of the glutes, in the back of the legs and the glutes. Good, okay, and then coming all the way back down, just bring the knees in for a gentle hug, roll out through the lower back, and then planting the feet back down on the floor. We're gonna do some knee or leg circles, it's up to you, okay? So lengthen the right leg down the mat and keep it nice and straight, and then you're going to float the right leg up and either keep the knee bent or you're going to straighten the leg, okay? And we're just going to draw a circle on the ceiling with that leg or with that knee. Inhaling to bring it across and down, exhaling to sweep it up and around back up to center. Good, change direction of that circle. So you might get some clunking in the hip here, and if you do, that's fine as long as it doesn't hurt. Maybe just make that circle a little bit smaller, and we're aiming to keep the hips really still here. Good, last one on this leg. Then we'll bring that foot back down, and then we'll change sides. So lengthen that right leg long, anchor it down, so flexing through that right heel, and then bringing that left leg up, softly pointing through the left toes. You can bend the knee here if you want to, or keep the leg straight. Inhale that leg across, exhale, circle it around. Good, so we're using the arms slightly, or the upper arms, to help us stay stabilized. And we're just trying to keep the pelvis as still as possible. Changing direction here. So a few in this other direction. Trying to emphasize circling across the body, not just out to the side. Good, last circle. Good, and then replacing both feet back to the floor, bending into the knees. Let's twist it out a little with some hip rolls. So bringing the ankles and the knees together. The arms stay down by your side with the palms facing up. Take an inhale. Exhale, bring those knees over to the right, keeping the back of the ribs on the floor, and keep the ankles and knees stacked so that left foot is going to peel up off the floor. Inhale, stay here. And then exhale, return to center, using your core strength to pull the knees back. Inhale. And then exhale, coming over to the left now. Inhale, stay here. Just check that the back of the ribs are still on the floor. And then exhale, come back to center. If you want to do a few with your feet up in the air, you can, just floating the feet up, staying in neutral spine, exhaling, coming across. Inhale to stay. And then exhale to pull yourself back in. Inhale to reset. Exhale to come across. Inhale to stay. And then exhale to come back in. Let's do one more on each side. So if your feet are on the floor, really try to keep your ankles and your knees connected. And feel that your obliques are working to create this rotation. Try not to extend too much through the lower back, so not too much lifting of the lower back. It's just rotation. Beautiful. If those feet were up, let's place them back down. Now let's come to some side lying leg work. So you're going to grab a few cushions. So as many cushions as you can get, just to support our head, and also we're going to need to support the underneath of our knee for one of the exercises. So or if you have a block is also good. So we're going to start on our left side. You're going to take one of your cushions and place them on your arm, on your left arm, and that's going to be outstretched underneath you. And then we're going to bend our knees so that our feet are in line with the back of our hips. And so our feet, hips, and shoulders are all aligned. And the top shoulder, our right shoulder, is not rolled forward, okay? We want to keep that right shoulder stacked on top of the left shoulder. supporting ourselves with fingertips in front and then lifting that side body away from the floor so that our spine is in neutral. We're going to come into our oysters. So we take an inhale. As we exhale, we're going to open that right knee away from the left, and then inhale, close it back down. So exhale, opening that knee, inhale, closing it back down. And just keep going with these openings and closings, but we just want to keep that pelvis nice and still. So sometimes it's a good idea to place your right hand on that pelvis just to check if it's moving or not. Otherwise, just use your own senses to feel if you're rolling. So you should feel a little squeeze through the back of your hip as you're opening that knee away. Okay, and then now we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to bring the knees together and we're going to open the feet so that we're in a bit of internal rotation. So that right foot lifts away from the left. Just to challenge the internal rotation of that right hip, still keeping that side body lifted away from the floor. Now we're going to swap between the two. So toes tap, knees tap. So we have to control that transition point of when we go from external rotation to internal rotation. Still keeping that side body lifted, pelvis is still. It's just the leg that's moving, not the pelvis. Okay, and then finishing that one there. We're going to now bring that bottom knee out in front of us so that it's like that chair position. The knee is in line with the hip and 90-degree bend behind the knee. And that top leg is going to extend straight so it's in line with the hip. The foot is in line with the hip and the shoulders. So we're going to now lift and lower that leg. So as we lift the leg, we're not letting our side body drop. This movement comes from the hip joint and it doesn't have any influence on the spine. So we have to use enough centering here to stay equal through both sides of the waist. Good, maybe turning those toes down slightly just to really get into the side of your hip. Nice. Good, 3 more. Exhaling to lift, inhaling to lower. Okay, and then finishing that one there. Now you're going to grab more cushions or a block. And now you're going to put your top knee on top of that stack of cushions and then extend your bottom leg long so that your bottom leg is now in line with your hips and shoulders. We're going to do some leg lifts on the other leg now so that we're working through our inner thigh. So keep your foot flexed. And we're just going to lift from the hip, making sure that that waist isn't pushing down. Good. Now, often the foot likes to lift more so than the actual leg. So make sure that your ankle is still and your foot is still in space, but the movement is coming from your inner thigh and from your hip joint, keeping the leg straight the whole time. Good. 3 more. Exhale to lift, inhale to lower. Very good. And last one. Okay, let's do all that on the other side. So swapping over, the right arm is now going to be underneath us with that cushion. Have your other stack of cushions nearby, ready to use. We're bending the knees so that the feet are in line with the hips and the shoulders, lifting up that waistline. That top hand is just supporting us. Exhale, open that knee into your oyster. Inhale, closing. So not rolling that hip back. Staying nice and straight in the spine, relaxed in the shoulder. Now, if this side lying position with your arm isn't comfortable for you, you can always just put your head on top of a stack of cushions and reach that arm out in front of you instead. Okay, just make sure that you're comfortable here and that your shoulders are aligned. Let's do the opposite now. So closing the knees and just lifting the left foot away from the right foot, coming into our internal rotation. So you might find that you have more or less internal or external rotation on one leg than the other. It's always just interesting to inquire into the body and notice any differences. And then now we're going to swap between the two. So toes tap or feet tap, knees tap. So use enough centering on that transition period from internal to external rotation and vice versa, so that the hips don't wobble too much, they don't rock forward and back. We're using all of those supporting muscles around the pelvis to manage this movement. And finishing there. Let's now take that bottom leg out in front of us so that the knee is in line with the hip and we have a 90-degree bend at the knee. And then our top leg is going to be extended long so it's in line with the hips and shoulders. We lift and lower that leg. So exhale to lift, inhale to lower. Neutral in the ankle joints, so try not to do anything funky with the foot. Sometimes you need to look down and see what it's doing because it's hard to know what's going on. Good, and just thinking about slightly internally rotating that leg just to hit the side of your glute here. If your leg is going very high, there's a high chance that you're using your hip flexor and you're pushing your bum back. So let's not do that. Let's keep that hip stacked and use the side of our hip. Good. And this next one is the last one. Grab your stack of cushions or your block. We're going to place the top knee on that stack and extend the bottom leg out long. And we're going to lift and lower that bottom leg. Checking in with the side body. I find that this one is probably one of the hardest. You might be different, but I always find that my waist likes to drop on this one, so I have to try really hard to keep it lifted as I lift and lower that bottom leg. Good. Try to keep lifting it straight up toward the ceiling. Make sure that it's not going too far forward or back. Good. Exhaling to lift, inhaling to lower. Last two. Okay. And then leaving that there. And we'll make our way up to a seated position now. So just put your cushions to the side. And we're going to find our way onto our seat with our knees bent in front of us, feet flat on the floor. First, we're just going to hold on to the back of the thighs and we're going to work through some rollbacks. So as you inhale, we're going to tuck the tailbone and round forward, but keep the shoulders stacked on the hips. Exhale, scoop through the belly to roll back, maintaining that C curve. Inhale, stay here. The gaze is down towards your navel. Then exhale, scoop up through your belly to come back up to seated and restack. So inhale, come into that C curve, tuck that tailbone, scoop the belly. Exhale, roll back as far as you can without flattening through your spine or losing C curve. Inhale, hold here. And then exhale, restacking. Good. Keep going with those. You can bring your hands in front of you if you want to. And we're just working on that feeling of resisting gravity pressing down on us as we roll back through our C curve. So we want to keep that tailbone tucked, keep that navel to spine scooped feeling. Gaze stays down toward the belly button. And then we can add on if you want to. So we're going to stay back in this C curve, maintaining C curve the whole time. We're going to exhale, lift the right knee and bring the upper body forward to meet the knee as much as you can whilst maintaining that C curve shape. Inhale, lower down. Exhale, other leg comes up. Inhale down, exhale, leg up. Good. So we're alternating the legs here. And focusing on that scooped feeling the whole time. So we don't want to come up so high that we flatten through the back. And we're trying to get as low as you can before you lose control and collapse in a heap on the floor. Just a couple more each side. You're absolutely fine to stay with the roll backs here if you want to. Good, and then last one on the left. Good, and then restacking all the way up to seated position. You can now bring your legs straight out in front of you with your feet flexed, or you can come into long frog with the soles of your feet together and knees apart. We're going to do a waist twist. So I'm just going to be in long frog, and we're going to stack our forearms in front of our chest and keep the forearms away from the below the shoulder line. Okay, so we're not up here, we're relaxed down through those collarbones, through the tops of the shoulders. Take an inhale. As you exhale, turn your head to the right, and then we're going to take a twist through the spine, keeping the pelvis still. Inhale, return back to center, and then exhale, turn your head to the left, and then your spine follows. Inhale, back to center. So keep this movement going with this rotation. As you rotate, I want you to think about getting taller through your spine. So you're rotating higher and higher and higher toward the ceiling as you turn. And then when you come back head and spine come back simultaneously. So you come back at the same time. So when you start the movement, the head starts first and then it follows with the rib cage. Not moving the arms too much. The arms stay balanced in front of your chest. And then coming back to center. Good. Just a couple more. Making sure that as you rotate, you're not leaning back into it, okay? So that's again why we want to think about lifting tall as we rotate so we don't end up crunching our spine down and leaning back into that rotation. So finishing next time you do one to the left. Good. And then we'll come into tabletop, or 4-point kneeling to do tabletop. So onto our hands and knees. Just take a second to find that neutral spine, so resisting gravity a little through the shoulders, fingers spread wide, and then find your nice natural lumbar curve, so your lower back curve. We're going to take the right leg out behind us and reach that leg long, so that leg is really straight, and we're just going to lift and lower that leg. So the lift happens from the back of the butt cheek, where the crease of your bum meets the back of your thigh. Okay, so it's right up high where your hip joint is. So we're not lifting the leg from the knee or from the foot, we're lifting it from the hip. If you want to make this harder, you can float that left arm out in front of you and just keep that left arm there while you're continuing lifting and lowering through that right leg. Use your breath to maintain the support. Keep navel drawn to spine, so we're not bracing through the belly. Good, last two here. Good, and then replacing that hand and foot back down if you lifted that hand onto the other side. So we're lengthening that left leg out, keeping that pelvis nice and stable and still. Straighten that knee as much as you can, and then we lift and lower from the back of the glute, or from the back of the leg where the butt cheek meets the thigh. So your glute is your butt cheek, your gluteus maximus, that is your butt cheek. So we shorten it to glute, and that is what we are working here. If you want to float your right arm up and maintain the stability with right arm lifted, just lifting and lowering that left leg. Inhale to lift, exhale to lower. Good, draw navel to spine. Notice if you've started to get crooked through your shoulders. Good, and not dropping the head down or looking forward. Try to keep a nice long line through your neck. And then making this next one your last one. And then bringing everything back down. We'll come onto our belly now to work in some spinal extension. So first we're going to bring the arms out in front of us, okay? And those feet are going to be turned out. So the hips are turned out, the legs are externally rotated with the feet turned out and a little bit wider than hip distance apart. And we're going to bring the head down to the floor. So just adjust yourself here so that your lower back is lifted slightly away from the floor. So we're lengthening through the lower spine and lengthening through the tailbone as well. And we feel that the upper back can be rounded. So we're just going to do what feels like a diamond press movement with the head and the shoulders, but the arms are going to have a reaction to that. So we're just going to lift the head up off the floor into neutral and then continue like in diamond press where we're lifting through the upper back and feel that the arms would slide back as you lift through your shoulders and through your upper back. And then as you come back down, your arms slide back forward again to return back to their start position. So inhale, lift the head just to neutral and then keep lifting through the upper spine. And then exhale to replace one vertebrae at a time all the way back down. Good, 2 more like this. Inhale to lift. And exhale to lower. On this next one, we're going to stay lifted. And then we're just going to lift the right leg and then the left leg. So lifting and lowering one leg at a time, keeping the legs straight, working in that same area that we were when we were in 4-point kneeling. So from the back of the hip and not dropping that lower back into the floor. If you want to add an opposite arm lift as well, so lifting left arm as that right leg lifts, and then lowering it down, lifting right arm as the left leg lifts, lowering it back down. Good. And making sure you're not bracing through the limbs that are on the floor as you're doing this. Just a couple more. Finishing next time you do one on the left. And then lowering everything back down. Push yourself up to 4-point kneeling to then bring your hips back into that rest position. So hips come back to heels, rest your head down on your hands and take a few breaths. Finding space through your spine. Breathing into the back of the ribs, into the back of the hips, maybe rocking your hips side to side. Now rolling ourselves back up to upright. And we're going to come into high kneeling. Okay, so knees are hip distance apart with your feet directly behind your knees. And we'll bring the arms out in front of us, palms facing down. We'll do our Z stretch now. So on an inhale, we're going to come all the way back. Well, not all the way back, but as far as you can from your knee joints, keeping your hips and shoulders and head aligned. And exhale to come forward again. Inhale, coming back. And exhale, coming forward. Let's just do this a few times. This can be a little strong on the knees. So if this isn't for you, then don't worry about doing it. Maybe just sit in kneeling for a few breaths, because kneeling as well can also be very good for the knees, for the knees to experience that amount of flexion. But this is strengthening up all the muscles through the front of the thighs and around the knee joints. Good, let's do one more. Okay. So let's now come to standing. So one foot in front of the other to just step up. And we're going to finish with some roll downs into standing back bends. So feet hip distance apart, standing in our nice neutral position. Take an inhale, then exhale, tuck the chin, and then start to round through the upper back, mid back, lower back, finding that C curve coming into the hips. Inhaling when you get to the bottom of your C curve, your roll down, and then exhale to scoop the belly and come all the way back up. Once you've come back up to standing, we're going to start to look up toward the ceiling, lift the breastbone toward the ceiling, And start to lean back, opening through the front of the body and sending the hips slightly forward. So not a huge amount forward, but we want a little bit of hip extension here. And then we come back to upright. Inhale, exhale, roll down. Take as many breaths as you need on your journey down, scooping through the belly, keeping the legs straight, weight forward over the fronts of the feet, or the toes, balls of the feet. And then coming all the way back up, restacking the pelvis before your spine aligns into neutral. And then we look up, inhale, taking that standing back bend, sending the hips forward. And exhale to restack. One more time. Inhale in neutral. Exhale, start your roll down. Scoop through the belly. Search for your C curve. Once you have your C curve, maintain it as much as possible as your hips flex forward. So as you bend at the hips, inhaling at the bottom, then exhale, scoop through the belly, restack through the hips. Restack your spine on top of the hips. Good, and then on your next inhale, looking up toward the ceiling, finding that standing back bend, lengthening the breastbone up toward the ceiling, and then exhale, come back to your standing position. So now just take a second to feel your standing position. So feeling that weight equal across all corners of the feet, legs engaged, spine nice and tall, arms just hanging off your frame. Taking a deep breath in and exhaling all the way out. And you're done for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you back here soon.